Oh, she is not happy.
Excuse me.
Excuse me. I want to talk to her. Madame Two Spells? Don't take it out on Mr. Sholmes. Oh la la, pardon. I was lost in my thoughts. Would it be fair to say that Mr. Drebber's last remark was significant to you in some way? I thought it was a little strange, that is all, how Monsieur Drebber could claim this now. If you don't mind me saying, madame, what are you talking about? Well, when I met you 10 years ago at your university dormitory, you recounted to me about your adventures in the cemetery, no? Including the gun shop. Stop. You might want to watch your tongue, you know. Oh, no. Now we're in it. Have a care, Drebber. That's no way to speak to a lady. Urgh. Please, Madame Two Spells, carry on. Of course. According to what Monsieur Drebber told me at the time, he did hear a gunshot from behind him, and the bullet hit the condemned man. I said nothing of the sort. No, you were very explicit about the details, about the mask that the figure was wearing, and the blood that splattered all over you when he was shot. Enough! Shut up, woman. You're making this up. That will do. Mr. Drebber. Yes? If you do, put it in your testimony, please. Very well. Finally, the camera.
Objection!
Mr. Drebber, do you remember this camera? But that is the camera from the fateful night. Yes, we borrowed it from the House of Horrors. It's the camera you took with you to the cemetery that night, Mr. Drebber. And this is supposed to be significant? This kind of camera is rarely seen in our homeland, so my colleague and I were keen to examine it closely. We noticed the lens extends forward on the end of some bellows. Like this.
Hold it!
Hold it! What's that? There's... Oh my god, there's so much blood. That's right. It's a rather conspicuous mark here on the bellows, in fact. Good lord! Yes, my lord. It would appear to be a splatter of blood. Something that could be confirmed with a simple chemical test. Isn't that right, Dr. C? It would be difficult to determine if it was human blood and not the blood of some animal. But yes, to test whether or not it's blood at all, it is simple enough. I propose that Madame Two Spells' testimony was correct, and that on the night in question 10 years ago, you were splattered with blood from a gunshot wound. And that furthermore, you really did witness the condemned professor emerging from his tomb. I love his little... There's simply no way you could have forgotten such a traumatic experience. In other words, the only explanation is that you're trying to hide the fact that you saw the professor that night. But why? Why would he want to do that? Well, not for his own gain, it would seem. Oh, yeah. Hello. Yeah, we did. Now I'm in here. It's someone who doesn't want the truth about the professor coming back to life to be exposed. Well, counsel, who is it then? Oh, we know who it is. We know who he's trying to protect.
Take that!
Dr. Scythe. Scythe? Whatever do you mean? Imagine if the convict who'd been sentenced to death was not in fact killed. Imagine if that was to come to light. What are you insinuating? And imagine if the convict in question was the country's most hated mass murderer. If it was the professor. That would be an unprecedented scandal!
Objection!
Yeah, duh. This is beyond a joke. Need I point out the dead cannot come back to life? Yeah, we're saying he never died. What you're suggesting would mean that the execution never happened. Oh, well, yes, that's what I'm suggesting.
Objection!
Once a man is sent to the gallows, he hangs. No one can escape. Not in Great Britain. Oh, well, who knows? But the fact is, there was a witness to the fact the man did escape the hanging. What? Whoa, there was? And it's exactly because of those monumental repercussions that Dr. Scythe would consent to any demand made of her by someone who threatened to expose the secret, even if that meant being complicit in a crime. You mean? I mean that Dr. Scythe wasn't collaborating in Mr. Drebber's wicked scheme. She was coerced into collaborating in order to protect her decade-old secret. She switched the dead body of Mr. Asman with a waxwork model and fabricated an autopsy report. Oh my god. Jesus Christ. Yes! Give me the leg, baby. It's up. Lord Van Zeeks. Pray forgive my freshly filled hollowed chalice and a whole raft of other discourtesies now. Goodness me! It's just the sort of tall tale Londoners would enjoy, I grant you. An executed killer rising from the dead, a Scotland Yard cover-up, a conspiracy at the highest level. So let me ask you one thing. Now, here we go. Where's your fucking evidence? If the condemned man really did emerge from his tomb that night only to be shot in the chest, who pulled the trigger? Wow. Well, how am I supposed to know that? I couldn't agree more. The Old Bailey is no place for wild fantasies. Ugh. And have you considered this, my learned Nipponese friend? Do you realize just what a dangerous endeavor it would be to coerce this woman into such criminal activity? It's tantamount to declaring war on the entire British police force and judiciary. Quite hard to imagine any sum of money being offered could warrant it. To rely on some stage deception when so much is at stake would be madness. Well, I suppose. And this was no petty crime either. The victim was murdered. A man who'd already invested money in the venture and would be instrumental in future profits, too. Yes, I had no reason to kill Mr. Assman at all. Or are you forgetting that his death results in me receiving not a single penny? The court is already aware of the contract between myself and the victim, no? There is the contract, that's very true. If the research grant was the aim, taking Mr. Assman's life would have made no sense anyway, which means Mr. Drebber's motive wasn't money. He was trying to kill him. But why? What was his motive? Your time is up, my learned friend. I'd say you have one last chance before the jury lose their patience with this charade. Let's see if you can back up your heady proposal, shall we? Let's see if we can save scum, shall we? How do you explain why this engineer would throw all caution to the wind and threaten his own country? Two pieces of evidence. That's one piece. It's this newspaper article, my lord. That was written 10 years ago, and every detail has been examined already. What can it possibly tell us? That drivel should never have been written. It's typical gutter-press nonsense and means nothing. Yes, on its own it isn't particularly significant. However, when considered alongside another piece of evidence, it will completely explain your motive for wanting Asman dead. Jesus, I have no idea what the second one is. Okay.
Take that!
It wasn't that. Okay, well, the newspaper was right. Okay. Okay. So the newspaper article made him pissed off. Why did he want him dead?
Take that!
No, that's not it. It could just be this.
Take that!
Nope. Man, I got the one right. I thought that was sufficient.
Take that!
This guy.
Take that!
Man, I'm never gonna get to present this.
Take that!
What? Yeah, I don't understand why this is the one. We're using the second piece to validate a signature? Was anyone making the argument that the signature in the newspaper was invalid? My learned friend, point out what these two pieces of evidence have in common. Ass man.
Take that!
What these two pieces have in common is ass man. A signature? The signature on the illustration that accompanies the 10-year-old article and the signature on the contract belong to the same person. What? As the court has heard, this illustration was drawn 10 years ago by the newspaper reporter who found Mr. Drebber and interviewed him about his ordeal. If you look closely, the reporter's signature can be seen in the bottom right corner of the drawing. And if you look at the contract here, which was signed between the witness and the victim last year, you can clearly see Mr. Assman's signature at the bottom. Let me see now. Good Lord, yes, they're identical. In short, the journalist who drew the illustration and wrote the article published about Mr. Drebber 10 years ago was the victim of this case, Mr. Odie Assman. Oh my god, he died.
Objection!
But explain to the court why. Why would that constitute a motive? This is a good question. Well, if you think back, you'll remember that Mr. Drebber talked about the article in his testimony. Grave robbing? Yes, it kicked him out of school. That's why I wanted to give him the trophy. Yes, well, I think I suffered retribution enough. The Daily Circus eventually unearthed my name and put it in print. Caused me a great many headaches. In the end, I had to leave the university. That was the only paper with the bad grades to identify me unambiguously, I might add. Then I gave up on my dream of becoming a scientist, and it was all because of that newspaper article. Why was the trophy not sufficient for that? At the time, you were a student at the University of London who dreamt of becoming a scientist. However, that single newspaper article changed your entire life. So Mr. Assman used to be a journalist, did he? He did, my lord. In fact, it's a widely held belief that Assman managed to position himself at the heart of his criminal network thanks to the many dubious connections he made during his time as a reporter. Arr. So you had to give up on your dream and leave university. You lost everything. Eventually you found yourself working in the field of science, but only in the shadows. And all because of that article written by Mr. Assman. Enough! Stop this endless drivel about my life. What? Explain yourself, Mr. Drebber. Yes, it's true. I had to leave the university as a result of that article. But it was just the straw that broke the camel's back. What do you mean? Almost every student of science in the faculty was too poor to actually conduct any research, but they struggled on with their hypotheses anyway. We all did, only to have them taken by vultures. Sooner or later, you knew your ideas would be stolen and patented by some wretch or another, after all. Good gracious! Making a name for yourself as a scientist in a climate like that was a miracle only a select few geniuses could ever hope to achieve. Personally, I wasn't one of those geniuses, so it was hardly a wrench. Being forced out of the university because of Lowgate was the best thing that could have happened to me. Mr. Drebber, do you genuinely believe that? Of course I do. Who's better placed to know whether or not I possess a talent for science than me? I'm sorry to say that your words don't ring true at all. How dare you? And oh man, fucking god. Oh, I know what it is. Finally.
Take that!
I can present the trophy. Do you remember this, Mr. Drebber? Is that a Royal Society trophy for excellence in science? What exactly is this trophy, Counsel? It's the greatest honor that can be bestowed on a young scientist, my lord. There is no higher accolade. It recognizes emerging talent and promises a bright future. Good gracious! Your prospects for the future were excellent, weren't they, Mr. Drebber? Because even then you were a genius in your field. But you lost everything. You had no more future. Your talents would go to waste. All as a result of a newspaper article. I don't know when you realized who Mr. Asman was, but when it dawned on you he was the same journalist who 10 years ago ruined your life, it's abundantly clear you had no intention of forgiving the man. The truth is... Oh. Fine. Clearly this has run its course now. I admit it. All of it. What? What are you doing? It's exactly as the Japanese man said. I was coerced into going along with this man's plot to murder the victim, on the condition that he kept my dirty secret from 10 years ago. No. Good Lord! Dr. Scythe, do you realize what you're saying, woman? It's all true. That day, when I arrived at the Crystal Tower and saw the birdcage, my heart nearly stopped beating. That memory from a decade ago that I'd done my best to bury deep inside myself. It was the professor again, staring me in the face. And then, before I had a chance to react, I noticed something else. There was a note tucked inside the model's jacket. Dr. Scythe, you will go along with my plan from someone who knows the truth about what really happened 10 years ago. All the instructions were in the note. Every detail was meticulously written out. I had no choice but to do what it said. I made the necessary alterations to the scene and fabricated the autopsy report as instructed. There was really no other choice. It had to be done to protect the judiciary. I can only apologize now. Why on earth would you buckle now? Well, there's no point in trying to hide it anymore, is there? I would have done anything to stop it coming out, even collaborate in a murder. But the great lie about that execution 10 years ago has been exposed. Whatever happens, I'm finished. So then, Mr. Drebber, what do you say to that? Your accomplice has admitted everything? Surely it goes without saying. You admit your part in it too, then? I admit nothing! At all! Okay. Have you forgotten that the... Oh my god, you blew it up. Short of me admitted to crime, there's really no possible way for you to prove I did anything wrong. No? No is right. There totally is. Whatever this man says, I admit everything. He threatened to expose my secret, so I went along with a plan. And Lord Van Zeeks... Yes? I hope you'll accept my apologies. What happens next is in your hands, of course. I've heard more than enough now. I hereby present the final findings of the court. This trial is not the proper forum in which to pursue the alleged wrongdoings of Mr. Drebber. The defendant is Professor Albert Harebrain. Very true. It had slipped my mind. Isn't he one of your closest friends? As the court has heard, Dr. Scythe has admitted to allegations brought by the defense, thereby absolving the defendant of any possible guilt. You mean... At the present time, it is the conclusion of this court that the defendant was not involved in any wrongdoing. Does the prosecution have any objection? We'll take it. Without further ado, the adjudication. Unless the prosecution or defense have any other matters to discuss. I guess not, no. I don't know. The judge will certainly deliver a verdict of not guilty, but is that what we want? I don't know, I kind of want to hear some more. Listen.
Objection.
I beg your pardon? We demand one final testimony. What? Let's go, baby. Listen, I'm literally about to free your client. What are you playing at now, my Nipponese friend? Why would you want to obstruct the conclusion of the trial at this point? No defense lawyer in his right mind would do that. Mr. Naruhodo, what are you thinking? One word of warning before I go. Ah, yes, that's why he said it. That's why he said it. I'm sure Mr. Sholmes knew. He must have deduced this is what would happen. Yes, I'm here in court to advocate for my client, and to secure an acquittal. Obviously. But that's not all. I believe I have a duty to the court to pursue the whole truth of the case, until every last detail is laid bare. Okay, that's not really how it works. Oh my god. About what? About the nature of your collaboration with Mr. Enoch Drebber. Ha! In case it's escaped your attention, I've already admitted to everything I did. The whole truth has already been revealed. So stop wasting everyone's time. As his lordship made very plain, your client will get the acquittal you wanted for him. There's simply no point protracting this business further with another tedious cross-examination. Oh, okay. Pray forgive my careless handling of that hollowed bottle. I slipped. The prosecution also calls for supplementary testimony. Don't be stupid. If there is more to this case than has yet come to light, then I will join my learned friend in pursuing the facts until the bitter end. Yo, what? Lord Van Zeeks. This is most irregular, to say the least. Nah, we did it last game. However, as the prosecution also calls for it, I will uphold the request. Dr. Scythe, you will testify to the court, explaining the full extent of your involvement in the murder committed by Mr. Drebber. Very well. It all began in the scene when I saw the waxworks and the note tucked inside its jacket. The actual body of the victim, as indicated in the note's instructions, was beneath the experimentation stage. I enlisted the help of the entire forensics investigation team to dress the scene appropriately. The truth about the execution 10 years ago is a state secret of the highest level. I had to protect it. You're a very shrewd boy. So kind of you to say. And what about this autopsy report, then? All I did was record the location of the body as being in the Crystal Tower instead of under the stage. That's all? Only my team were aware of the deceit, and then only under my explicit instructions. Nobody else at Scotland Yard knew anything about it, I assure you. Oh no, we're cross-exing. What is it about you Japanese that makes you doggedly persistent? Holy shit. All right, let's do it.
Hold it! Hold it!
So you knew about the special construction of the stage used to carry out the trick then? It was quite obvious what has happened with the victim and the waxwork. And you switched the two over. In other words, you recorded the victim's bodies having been discovered in the Crystal Tower, and the waxwork, I wrapped it and sent it by carriage to the specified address at the specified time. And why were you given such directions? Presumably so it could be recovered by Drebber and returned to Madame Tusfel's. I see. And then you put the birdcage back on the experimentation stage. Yes, although someone obviously made a mistake about which cage should go where. I thought I'd made it perfectly clear to the team, but still. I suppose you were focused on the victim's body, that being a more important detail. The body had to be arranged in certain ways. When you say arranged, I presume you mean with this? Yes, the instructions of the engineer's note said something along the lines of, fabricate some evidence to make it clear that Hairbrain alone could have killed Asman. So you mean that was your doing? I fetched Hairbrain's ridiculous screwdriver from the stage and took it with me, alone, to the abyss under the stage where the birdcage had fallen. I didn't feel it would be appropriate to involve anybody else in that particular part of the deception. There was a void under the stage where I found the birdcage lying in dirt. I approached it, leaned down, and slowly opened it up. Then I took the screwdriver in both hands and plunged it into the man's chest. Jesus. And then you noted that in your fake autopsy report as a fictitious cause of death. Exactly. So the actual cause of death was the trauma resulting from the 30-foot drop.
Hold it!
It was a matter of priorities. What? Nothing was more important than protecting the secret of the professor. My team did what was necessary without losing sight of the primary goal. I considered their conduct exemplary. Don't concede the point. You mustn't let her win. Ugh.
Hold it!
Surely there was some other way you could have protected the secret, like killing this asshole. No, there wasn't. I've done my utmost, believe me. In many ways, I respect your determination. Damn. Like, I don't buy it.
Objection!
Me when I got it in one. What on earth is the matter, Counsel? Have you lost your tongue? I apologize, my lord. Dr. Scythe, in that last statement of yours, there's just one point that seems to defy explanation. Out with it, my learned friend. He dropped the Nipponese. Thank you. There's an obvious inconsistency between your description and this photograph, which shows the victim in the birdcage following the events that led to his death. Objection! The court has already examined that photograph in depth. There's nothing new we can learn from it. Yes, we have already considered it. That's true. I'm just about done. Good. But we now know the facts to be different. What do you mean? I believe we should let the defense explain. Oh, Jesus Christ. Damn it. Okay, I've got a couple of guesses.
Take that!
Look closely at the bloodstain on the victim's chest. It extends in a downward direction toward the man's feet. And why is that significant, Counsel? Gravity. If the victim was stabbed moments before the kinesis machine was set in motion, that's entirely expected. Ah, of course, no, that's not what happened. Exactly, my lord. Dr. Scythe made it very clear in her testimony just now that at the point where she stole Professor Hairbrain's screwdriver and stabbed the victim was after the grand deception was set in motion, when the birdcage had fallen out of the stage beyond sight. From the shape of it, it's clear the birdcage would have fallen on its side after the 30-foot drop. And if the victim had been stabbed whilst inside the birdcage in that position, the blood from the wound would have spread out equally in all directions. For it to have formed the longitudinal appearance we see in this picture is inconceivable. Given that the victim's blood seeped vertically downward from the wound, it must be the case that when you stabbed Mr. Assman, he was standing up. In short, Dr. Scythe, your latest testimony was a fabrication. I knew it. I was right. Now I've identified the contradiction. There's only one way to explain the facts. We've all been under a great misapprehension here. What? What sort of misapprehension? Dr. Scythe. You claim you were coerced into helping Mr. Drebber as a result of the note he left in the waxwork. You claim that you made changes to the scene of the crime to implicate the defendant. And you claim that you authored a fake autopsy report to cover your tracks. But one of those claims is an out-and-out lie. Because the question of what the bloodstain really tells us has only one possible answer. If that is the case, what is it, man? I'm lost, too. Counsel, you've clearly struck upon a revelation. Now tell the court what it is. Well, the stabbing of the victim, for sure. If when the victim was... We can be sure that the victim must have been either sitting or standing upright at the time. But as you rightly pointed out, the birdcage would have fallen on its side. Yes, it would. Which tells us the victim must have been in that position of his own accord.
Objection!
That's impossible! The man was dead! No. That is the misapprehension. When the birdcage fell from the stage into the void below, it hit the ground with considerable force. But Mr. Assman didn't die in the fall. He probably lost consciousness for a while, but when he came round, he got to his feet to climb out of the cage, just as Dr. Scythe appeared. If the victim was in fact alive at this point in time, it changes everything. Mr. Odiasman's killer wasn't the defendant, Professor Albert Harebrain. Nor was it the mastermind behind the trickery, Mr. Enoch Drebber. It was you, Dr. Courtney Scythe. We're fucking her up. Order! Can this possibly be true? Have you been taking me for a fool? It was you, was it? You killed him! You hoped that by admitting to being an accomplice in Mr. Drebber's scheme, the trial would end before you were accused of a far worse crime. Cold-blooded murder. Oh, do shut up! You're so desperate now, you're making all of this up, as if I would do something like that. Get her ass. I assure you the defense is not desperate, Doctor. Mr. Naruhodo has established the facts using evidence and logic alone. Ha! Logic! Don't make me laugh. Sadly, your logic has a gaping hole in it. Okay. I'd have thought it was obvious. A motive, boy. You're lacking a motive. What possible reason would I have to kill Mr. Assman? Assman was involved in any number of criminal activities, from coercion to theft to murder, but there's no known connection to Dr. Scythe. There's no obvious motive. Murdering someone for no reason is a different story. Oh my god, does he have the fucking evidence? No. When you questioned what possible reason you could have for wanting to kill Mr. Assman, something did come to mind. There's a particular object that explains why she wanted to kill Mr. Assman. Oh, what? Did see it yesterday. It's a scalpel. Or rather, scalpels. Did you say scalpels? Shit, yeah. It would appear that word has struck a chord, Doctor. You... Come on, out with it! It was yesterday when we visited your laboratory. Look at this big, thick book here. Oh? They're buying 500 scalpels every month. 500 scalpels? At first I wondered what on earth you could be using that many scalpels for. But actually, I realize now it's not the scalpels themselves that are significant. It's the money, disappearing every month from the department's accounts. Assman's criminal organization relied heavily on extortion for its funding, tracing the money from the forensic investigation team's account to find out where it was going. Would be extremely straightforward. Oh, fuck. 10 years ago, when Mr. Assman was still a journalist and wrote this article about Mr. Drebber, he may well have stumbled upon information as he was researching the story. Information relating to Dr. Scythe's dark secret he would use to rack money from her for the next decade. Her darkest secret? Good lord! You mean... I don't know what happened on that night. But clearly the opportunity to rid yourself of that menace was too tempting to pass up. So in the end, you weren't coerced at all, were you? You did it entirely of your own free will. You stabbed Mr. Assman in the heart with all your might to silence the blackmailer who knew your dark secret forever. Oh, this is so good. You'll never understand. None of you. What we've had to keep covered up all these long years. Wii? Nintendo Wii? As very little of the machine remains after it's ripped apart by the bomb, the truth of this case can never be properly established unless you speak out. And if you decide not to, it is very possible Courtney Slythe will escape punishment for her crimes. Please, sir, own up to what you've done and tell the court the truth about what happened. 10 years ago, you told the truth, and you were robbed of a bright and successful future as a result. I can certainly understand your bitterness and your consternation now. However, this is surely the chance you've been waiting for, to sever the hold fate's had over you all these years. Super high voltage, instantaneous kinesis. I mean, really. It's the addle-brained mock scientists that are the worst, you know? They don't recognize the fact that they don't have talent. They can't even get that right. And so they end up chasing impossible dreams, having unbridled faith in their abilities. They go on and on about their wonderful hypotheses, their stupid little eyes shining like a child's. They make me sick. I can't abide their foolishness. Careful, Mr. Drebber. I was particularly pleased with the kinesis machine. Made for quite a show, didn't it? So you admit it? You admit that it was nothing more than a sham made for the purpose of killing the victim? Yes, I admit it. I did it all in the name of revenge. Oh. Revenge for the future that Mr. Assman's article had deprived you of 10 years earlier. But the revenge you sought didn't stop at Assman, did it? Which is where that very particular waxwork comes in. Yes, I see. The condemned convict that you saw rising from the grave in Lowgate Cemetery 10 years ago, if your account of those events was all true, then obviously Scotland Yard couldn't afford to acknowledge what had happened, even if it meant discrediting a bright young man and crushing any future career he might have had. So your plan required that you abduct that particular waxwork model in order to exact your revenge on Scotland Yard as well, or on Dr. Scythe, to be precise. It was a year ago. By some extraordinary twist of fate, Asman turned up at my workshop. He didn't remember who I was, of course. He just wanted to employ my services as an engineer. And he happened to have a paper with him. An article on the front page caught my eye about the coroner who'd handled that bogus autopsy being appointed head of a new forensic team. When I learned the news, oh, my cognitive processes started to devise the plan. What a horrid tale. He robbed me of my future, so I wanted to use the man's own wiles against him for revenge. And have that rotten Scotland Yard eating out of my hand at the same time. I wanted them all to suffer the same humiliation I'd had to suffer. Your actions against those who'd ruined your future were justified as revenge. At least to yourself. Certainly, no one has the right to destroy another's prospects, especially for purely selfish gain. And yet, in carrying out your plan, you did exactly that to someone else, didn't you? Did I? Professor Harebrain's only crime was passion for his hypothesis, but you had no compunction about sacrificing his future to effect your revenge. You knew he would be forever branded a failure and a fraud. Perhaps life treated you unfairly 10 years ago, and others' misconduct left your life in tatters. But remember this. Your own actions resulted in exactly the same thing for another perfectly innocent young man. Jesus, that's the end of it? Oh my god. Lord Van Zeeks, what of Dr. Scythe? An immediate warrant for her arrest has been granted, and she's been remanded in custody, my lord. I presume she will face trial in the coming days, along with Mr. Drebber. A most regrettable situation indeed. She's made great contributions to her profession over the years. It really is a hard truth to swallow. However, that is a topic for some future occasion. For now, Professor Harebrain... Yes? It seems there was a great deal more to your experiment than you realized. However, I think we can assume now that all the sordid details have been brought to light. This has been a very long and profound trial, but I'm pleased to say you are absolved of guilt. Me, this dedicated scientist, this devotee of natural philosophy. I've been selfish and self-centered, and above all, a fool. Professor, I've spent my life thinking about nothing but my research, misguidedly believing I could do whatever I set my mind to despite my lack of talent. And the worst of it is, in the process, I've caused others pain and misery, others who are far, far greater people than I. No, Professor, that's not true. Don't tar yourself with the same brush as Drebber. What happened was his doing and his alone. This outcome is his fate, not yours. You're not to blame in any way. Lord Van Zeeks, and the derision with which he referred to you earlier, calling you a fool, talentless even. The man has no idea. To believe in yourself and work your fingers to the bone to realize your dreams, that's laudable, not laughable. No one has the right to deride another for such choices. Oh, thanks, man. That's really kind. All right. Oh. That shit took 10 years off my life. Yippee. Congratulations, Professor Hairbrain. Mr. Naruhodo, Miss Susato, I am truly, beside myself with gratitude. How can I ever thank you enough? I'm just glad it's all been cleared up. And you realize you were just caught up in a bad situation. Right now, you know, if I had that research grant money, I'd give the whole lot to you, every penny. Okay, thank you. I do not need your book. Well, just as a memento then, sure. I've been wondering, Professor, what are you going to do now? Oh my, yes, what am I going to do? My hypothesis of my great machine lie in ruins. But still, it's been too long since I was last in London, so perhaps I'll enjoy some sightseeing. I must explore the Great Exhibition while I'm here too, and see if inspiration hits me. Oh, great. I can't allow that. Hello? Lord Van Zeeks, what are you doing here? Barack! I'm sorry you had to go through that, Albert. Well, if I'm honest, it was terrifying. You were like a great demon behind your bench there, snarling down on your prey. You're one of the few true friends I have. I couldn't leave it to anybody else to handle the prosecution or the defense. Sorry? I always knew you had my best interests at heart. Don't worry. How about you show me around while I'm here in town? It's been a long time since we left university. We have a lot to catch up on. Listen, Albert. In a few days, your acquittal will be made official. When that happens, you must head straight to Dover. I'll accompany you. From there, you'll cross the channel and make your way back to Germany. I've already purchased the tickets. But no! Hold on a minute, Barack. What about the Great Exhibition? This is the chance of a... No sightseeing, Albert. Give up on the idea. Sometimes it's hard to see any warmth in those eyes, Barack. Lord Van Zeeks? What the fuck? A necessary precaution. Well, Iris told me that when you meet Lord Van Zeeks at his office some days ago, he asked how Mr. Natsume was doing. That's right. The point is, Mr. Natsume is alive, even though it's been more than 6 months since he stood trial with the Reaper. Yeah, that's nice. Doesn't stretch overseas. Those in the Reaper's sights meet their ends days or sometimes months after their acquittal. That's been the pattern up till now. But of course, we know that both Mr. Natsume and Gina were completely innocent. True. And perhaps that governs the Reaper's actions. The truly innocent are spared. But I don't want to take any chances with a close personal friend. Barack! Like the mustached Nipponese, this man should leave the country without delay. Okay. What a weird guy. yes, all right. Well then, Mr. Naruhodo. Thank you so much for everything. Yeah, it was all good. Goodbye. Now, my Nipponese friend. We have matters to discuss. Can you spare me some time? I guess so. So are you satisfied? You saved a guileless scientist from a great injustice. Yeah, I feel pretty good about it. Anyway, I imagine you've been wondering where my animosity towards you Nipponese comes from. Oh, good. Yeah. You clearly know our ways, so I would guess that some specific incident led to your thorough dislike of my race. Will you tell me what happened, please? The professor. I thought I'd never hear that name in this courtroom again, to be honest. He took your brother's life. Clint. My brother was Clint Van Zeeks. 16 years ago, when I was still just in my teens, he was already the director of prosecutions and a key member of the judiciary. I looked up to him. He was everything I aspired to be. He was involved in the establishment of justice systems in foreign countries as well. There were exchange programs between Britain and other nations too, to share knowledge and ideas. As part of one of those programs, 3 judicial students came to Britain from your homeland, the Empire of Japan. It was Mikitoba. I remember Dr. Mikitoba well. I was a minor at the time, training at the prosecutor's office. One day Clint introduced me to the 3 visiting Nipponese. So you've met my father. He and his colleagues were polite and amicable. They were adept at their work and exacting in their standards. It was my first encounter with the Nipponese spirit, and it made a very great impression upon me. But 6 years later, that's when it happened. The investigation was going nowhere. There were no suspects even, just an ever-growing list of victims. And in the end, my brother became one of them. The last, in fact, before the case was finally resolved. I'm so sorry, Lord Van Zeeks, truly. Clint was always ready to put his life on the line for justice anyway, so he wouldn't have wanted it any other way. He lost his life to the killer, but it was his victory in the end. For me personally, though, it was a great loss. I found myself in a very dark place indeed. When I finally found out the killer's identity, the reason why no one had been able to catch the man sooner ceased to be such a mystery. He'd been hiding in plain sight all the time. Are you aware of the political events 10 years ago? A period of extremely sensitive diplomacy between British and Japanese empires. Oh? Oh?
When the trial reached its conclusion,
Oh my god, he's got the
I
key.
thought to myself, yes, it's time.
Oh,
Time
man.
for you to come face to face with this hideous monster. I borrowed the key for the mask from the proprietress of the Waxwork Museum. So see for yourselves now. Confirm it with your own eyes. The truth that's been hidden this past decade.
Oh my god, it's gonna be her dad.
That's the professor?
Yes, that's him.
Until now, the thought never even crossed my mind. That the mass murderer, whose crimes shook Britain as never before, was Japanese.
Oh, it's just that he's a Japanese guy?
Wait a minute. That face. I feel as though I've seen it somewhere. It's strangely familiar.
Hey, guy in a mask, are you alright? It is him! It's totally him.
Father.
It's his dad.
What? Father?
Oh, he's gonna be fucked up. Oh no, it really is him. Holy shit. What is going on in this fucking game?
After a whole year, finally his memories returned.
Oh, he still looks great.
As he stood there before me.
Ryunosuke.
You're a fucking lawyer?
Hello again. My friend.
Kazuma-sama!
Judicial Assistant Mikotoba.
What the fuck is going on?
It's been a very long road. Thank you. Thank you for guiding my friend here when I could not.
It was an honor.
I knew you wouldn't die that easily. Kazuma.
Give him his sword back.
I owe you thanks, too, for taking good care of that in my absence.
Oh, Karuma. Great blade of the Asogi clan. Passed down through the generations.
Oh, that's probably the sword that sliced up some of these fucking
When we left Japan,
professors.
this sword was at my friend's side. The Japanese man's katana is his soul, and he couldn't be parted from it. But then, when the incident happened, it was Susato-san's wish that I inherit the sword, and I've kept it with me ever since, along with my memories of the friendship we shared. With this by my side, I always felt that you were watching over me somehow.
Well, I literally was. Oh, yeah, baby.
I've made it. At last. Father.
Are you saying... Surely not. You mean, you knew all this time? I'm looking at it, but I still can't believe it. This mass murderer is Kazuma's father.
Jesus. Cinema. 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 Cinema.
Ryunosuke, we have much to talk about, but now is not the time. I'll be seeing you.
That's all Kazuma said
What the fuck?
before he turned and left us there in the courtroom.
Is yeah, I was gonna say, is Van Zeeks here still? 3 months ago, when Lord Strongheart introduced us, I had an inkling there was something there, some connection. Why did he do that? The man was apprehended, even executed, but his legacy just won't die. That's the sad truth. Anyway, that's all I had to say. I thank you for meeting with me as I asked. That was insane, dude. Thank you for telling me that all. That was fucking crazy. That was like the craziest shit I ever heard in my life. We were there to meet my father from the train. It was the first time I'd ever seen him. Yeah, it sucks. It took time to adjust to having father around, but just when I was starting to get used to it, he called me into his study one day. He told me a great friend of his had passed away in London, and the friend had left behind a son. A boy 7 years my senior. Father told me the boy had made a promise to his late father, so he was studying to become a defense lawyer. I wanted to help, so I studied to become a judicial assistant. As I'm sure you've worked out, that young man's name was Kazuma Asogi. So you see, that's how he and I met.
For a brief moment, my great friend had returned, only to disappear again all too soon. But in that fleeting encounter, something stirred. Something that had been dormant for a long time. As if great wheels had been set in motion. I could almost hear them creaking into life. In some ways, it was the end of a chapter, but in many, it was the start of a new one.
Case 3? That was case 3? Oh my god. Oh, holy. Alright, you think we can do case 4 today? Good night, everyone. This was fun. I had a good 24-hour stream. I appreciate y'all for sticking around. I'm sorry Streamlabs fucking broke. That was annoying. I will be back Monday. Good night. I'm gonna throw you over to Farfa. Could you read my bits real fast? There is a debacle. Oh yeah, let me see what we got going. Oroberon, thank you for the 10. I really appreciate it. Stardust Strike. My opponent's Prohibition calls Stardust. Activate interdimensional matter transporter. What happens? The judge comes over and hits you.